Hi everybody, it's Terry Ryder from Hotspotting, bringing you this week's edition of Hotspot of the Week. Now, we've just published our latest edition of our national top 5 regional hotspots report, a report that's growing in popularity as more and more investors around Australia come to understand that right now most of the strong growth markets in Australia are actually outside the capital cities. They're in regional Australia. A part of the overall Australian market that many investors overlook, and certainly our national mainstream media overlooks regional Australia in all sorts of ways, and in particular in its coverage of residential property. Most of the time when they publish statistics about what's happening with prices, for example, what they call Australian property prices, they're really talking about the capital cities, the average figure for the capital cities, or the individual figures for each of the capital cities. Regional Australia very seldom gets a Guernsey, but it's a mistake, and it's an oversight, and it's misinforming investors and other types of real estate consumers around Australia. You really need to know that if you're looking for growth as well as affordability and much better rental returns than you can get in the biggest capital cities, then you need to know that there's plenty of growth happening in regional Australia. So our new edition of National Top 10 Regional Hotspots report highlights that factor. Now, one of the locations that's featured in that report is Queanbeyan in regional New South Wales. Now, Queanbeyan benefits from having a foot in two camps. Technically, it's a regional city in New South Wales, but in reality, it's part of the Canberra metropolitan area. Someone's drawn a little invisible line on a map which says that Queanbeyan, even though in reality it's part of the urban sprawl of Canberra, it's technically in New South Wales. That's an advantage. It's an advantage both ways because, firstly, downtown Queanbeyan is only about 15 or 20 minutes drive from the dead centre of Canberra. It's a lot closer to central Canberra than many of the suburbs of Canberra is close to the Canberra CBD. Just a quirk on the way the map's drawn, and but it benefits from being in New South Wales because first-home buyers who want to buy a little bit more affordably than Canberra, Queanbeyan is a little cheaper than most of the suburbs of the Canberra metropolitan area. You can skip over the invisible border into New South Wales and access the various assistance measures like stamp duty concessions and grants that are available for first-home buyers in New South Wales, and be buying more affordably anyway. So it's a great market for young buyers, but it's also a good market for investors. So Queanbeyan is, it's a strong local government area in its own right. It's got a growth economy. It's certainly got a strongly growing population. It's getting sort of urban sprawl growth out of Canberra, and there's land available there for new development. But it's only about 15 kilometres from central Canberra, southeast of the centre of the national capital. It's got by Canberra standards, a good level of affordability. There's a number of suburbs in this local government area which have median prices in the low to mid 500,000s. Canberra generally is more expensive than that. That's for houses. There are a number of apartment markets. Queanbeyan, Queanbeyan East and Crestwood in particular have pretty solid unit markets. Median prices in those markets are mid 200,000s in the case of Crestwood, and low 300,000s in the case of Queanbeyan and Queanbeyan East. So it offers affordability, relative affordability compared to downtown Canberra. Some pretty good growth happening in that market. In the last 12 months, the median price for Braidwood, for example, is up 9%, Carabar's up 8%, Queanbeyan East is up 7%. The suburb of Crestwood is up 25%. I think that's probably a little misleading because it's a particular area of lots of new development, new estates, and so the newer product tends to be more expensive, and that's probably artificially inflating that median price. But nevertheless, taken with the figures for some of those other suburbs, there is growth happening in that market, which is well above average for the nation at the moment, and certainly outperforming the average figures that are currently coming out of Canberra. Also, some pretty good rental yields available. Some of the Suburbs in the Queanbeyan area have median rental yields above 5%, and there are others that are in sort of the high 4s, 4.8%, 4.9%. The apartment markets, Crestwood, the median yield is 6%. Queanbeyan, a suburb of Queanbeyan within the local government area of Queanbeyan, has a median rental yield for apartments of 5.6%. So there's some pretty reasonable rental returns available on this market as well. Vacancies, it depends on which postcode you look at. Most of the postcodes in this local government area have very low vacancy rates, down around 1%, between 1% and 1.5%. But the exception is the postcode that includes Crestwood, which I mentioned earlier as a new development area. And like a lot of new development areas, sometimes the vacancy rates after a spout of new development, the vacancy rates are above average, and that's the case at the moment. There's plenty of development and infrastructure spending impacting on this market right now. Under construction, for example, is the town centre for the emerging new development suburb of Gugong, $150 million project, which will include shops and cafes, a school, and residential lots. There's a lot of that kind of thing happening in this area. The Gugong subdivision itself is a long-term master planned project, which is to have an estimated value of $2.5 billion. The South Tralee Urban Concept Development Area, which is now underway, is a $1 billion project as well. So lots happening in the way of spending, construction, jobs creation, growing population, relative affordability. New South Wales assistant measures of first-home buyers available for a market which is essentially part of the Canberra metropolitan area, but at more affordable prices. So it's a location that's featured prominently in our new edition of the National Top 10 Regional Hotspots report, which I urge you to consider getting at a time when the whole climate around real estate has improved enormously in the last 3 or 4 weeks. With the election out of the way, changes announced by APRA that are favourable, cuts to interest rates, media turning a lot more positive, sentiment generally has improved. Not a bad time to be considering investing in real estate, and in particular looking for those opportunities that exist in regional Australia. And just before I sign off, I just want to remind you that because it's the month of June, at this time of year we always have end of financial year special offers. There's 2 main ones that we have at the moment. One is for strategy sessions, where you get to have a one-on-one chat with myself for an hour via Skype or Zoom, unless you happen to live in my area, when we can meet over a cuppa. There's a substantial reduction on the normal price for that one-on-one strategy session, where it gives you an opportunity to ask your most burning questions about what you're thinking of doing or trying to do with real estate investment, or in the case of some people just overwhelmed by all the choices and all the options and really don't know how to get started. And that one-on-one chat can certainly help people get over that hump of uncertainty and on the right path towards getting started with property investment. So that's the strategy session. That's one of our end of financial year special offers. The other one relates to our premium product, which is called Premium Membership, where essentially you get all our Hotspots reports, all the editions of the Ryder report, all the quarterly editions of the Price Predictor Index, and all the top 5 and top 10 Hotspots reports. There's a reduction in the normal annual fee for that product, Premium Membership, which saves you $660 on the normal annual price. So worth having a look at if you're a serious investor who wants a flow of information coming in regularly from us, identifying the best places to buy and alerting you to what's really going on in property markets across Australia, as opposed to some of the rubbish that's written in mainstream media. Okay, that's it for now. Terry Ryder from Hotspotting signing off. Let's do it again soon. Bye for now.